And we're getting on that. Everybody have their mics on?
Mike has got a green light.
Green light, green light. Should we go ahead and get started and have other people around and continue? I think we know. You just have one other person coming.
Perfect. That's cool. Okay, well, let us know when you are ready.
I am absolutely ready.
You're absolutely ready, good. Good morning, everyone. We will start our executive board meeting here. Today, we are not as formal as we normally are. But it is
Get that closer to you, otherwise it's probably gonna get picked up. Your mic. I've noticed if you don't move close, we get a lot of feedback, but we can't get heard.
Right.
I've heard.
okay.
Sorry about that.
Current time is 7:35 AM on Thursday, November the 30th. Present is Virgie Ammerman, myself, Jerome Harden, and our director of people reporting.
So I'm assuming you're calling the meeting to order and you're doing a roll call. Currently, we just have one board member in attendance, and then I believe, and it's just the executive board, so
It's
it's
just
three
the-
members, and one member has been detained at work, and so we are expecting one other member. Vicky Clark should be here shortly, and so it would be, the majority of the executive group is here, so we would want to continue to have the meeting because it's important to prep for next week.
Absolutely. And for, of course, the viewing audience, we continue our efforts to have transparency and community involvement. With you being able to, view the meeting as time goes on. We are working to figure out whether or not that the executive board has to wait for the board. Not the meeting, but we're not. We figure that out. We televised and we on the
The next item would be to approve the agenda, so you'll just, need a motion to approve the agenda. Ooh.
It's been moved. I will provide a second. The roll call required.
All of the favor?
Next agenda item for us is our public comment. We have no one in the gallery today.
I have Nelson with a hand up here. If you can hear us, if you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Good morning, Mr. Carr.
Can you guys hear me? Can you see me?
He took his hand down. He's probably still in, he's on. There it is. Okay. So are you able to let him speak? Is that what we're? Yeah, I'm trying. Okay, okay.
Yeah, it is.
Can you hear me?
There he is.
I'm guessing you can see me, but you can't hear me.
Not yet.
Can you speak, Mr. Nelson, and see if we can hear you?
I'm in my office.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
What I was trying to say earlier is that there were times when I could not understand what Mr. Harvey was saying, but it may be because of my connection here in Battle Creek. Anyway, I'm here if you need me.
Great. We'll just do a recap and again, transparent. So, good morning, everyone. It is November the 30th, 2023. The meeting started at 7:35 a.m. this morning. This is our executive board planning meeting and an effort to be prepared for the upcoming meeting in November, where the community at large may be viewing more, of course, records. This meeting have been published for viewing by the community over the last 8 months. We are reviewing whether that working meetings will be necessary going on, but again, I will continue to transmit the meetings out for the community viewing. Transparency for the community. So the next thing we've done is just simply call the meeting to order. The agenda has been moved as executive, and we are now in the public comment section. And with that, I'll just add that Council Pastor be found that he can hear us, that we can hear him. So if there's any others out there in the viewing audience that have a comment, at the time we will welcome your comments.
Well, Mr. Harvey, can you hear Mr. Harvey better now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Ammerman, I'll ask that you move us through the agenda with the next items 4 through 7. 4 through 5, 4 through 6.
So no other public comment, and we don't have a consent agenda, so we'll move to the first item, which is to discuss the CEO evaluation policy and procedure. It's included in your packet as a handout at this meeting. It was not publicized because it is in draft form, and we won't be publicizing it until it's in a final form that the board will be voting on, which we would hope would happen at the December 7th meeting. So it's the last, I'll say, bulk of papers, because I did not number it, but it would come after page number 11 in your packet. So there's 3 components to this. There's the actual policy and procedure that has been developed through communication with Rose Street Advisors. Mr. Harvey, I believe you had some input. I know I had some input. So that's what we've done thus far. And so that is a 3-page document that outlines the policy and procedure of the process for the CEO evaluation. That's 3 pages long. Then there are 1, 2, 3 pages outlining recommended expectations for the CEO evaluation. And then the final segment of that packet is what a sample survey would look like when it becomes time to assess the CEO, which would happen at the end, like mid-summer next year. We would be doing that process because the review period would be ending August 31st to anticipate being ready to renew a contract on November 1st.
So I only have one question, and the question is, So there are 6 areas in which we comment on or make a decision in the calculation. Or is there still a calculation?
There is a calculation and it's very different than before. So, so it's easier for me to see on this narrative page
Okay,
where you see there's a governance competency section and that is weighted at 25%. And then there is a goals from the EDC multicultural 10-point plan, and that is weighted at 25%.
okay,
Then there are 4 goals, actually 5 now, from the EDC 5-year plan, that is weighted at 25%. And then the goals from the Housing Champion Goals worksheet is weighted at 25%. So then if you go to the actual survey, you would, and they would implement this, and then they would guide the board through it. But each of these segments are worth 25%, so part 1 is 25%, and then the competency section is much longer than the specific goal section.
okay,
So
so that's not really the part
Okay,
okay, so they're rated at 25%, but then if somebody is unable to provide a rating,
yes,
how will that affect?
that is disregarded,
Okay, okay, that's,
very different than before, yes, yeah, yeah.
okay, thank you.
Sure. So I think, so I believe what would be a good conversation is, do you enjoy what's here? Would you want to change any of it? And would you want to add any of it, anything to it? And that would be on the 3 pages that sort of outline what I would be rated on. And then if anyone has any questions on the actual policy, the intent is to use this policy and procedure as a template for future policies and procedures that would come before the board. So I've not been able to locate any other template that's been used in other organizations I've been in. We had a template, we would craft certain policies and procedures. And then the board, the governance, because the board, because they're responsible for governance, would authorize and approve those policies. Then staff can execute. So this is an example of a new template that we would use for any future policy that we would put into place. So the way this works is it just outlines the purpose, it outlines the policy, which is normally brief, and then the procedure is a little lengthier, and it kind of explains everything you would need to know if you had to execute this. So this should allow for more resilient growth on our part because we'll have all policies documented.
Well, I think maybe we should just, as far as what I've seen, and I briefly looked over this, but, that for the next meeting, that we would, I would want, I speak for myself, I would want every board member that attends to be familiar with this, looked over it, and then we'll discuss it. And I think that should be put in the notes and, or sent to them in email, that they know that it's their responsibility to have this, to be ready for this when we come to the meeting, so that way we don't have to table anything, or we can add or take away.
Harvey, you have any thoughts or direction? I know it's a lot, sorry, it's a lot for 7:30 in the morning.
And I'll be brief. You know, Vicky, our effort was to put something forward that settled what was a lot of disarray around metrics for leadership. I think that this does that. I have not had the opportunity by admission, Vicky, to look at other communities that do the same kind of thing. And that is still something I think from a due diligence standpoint, we owe, this effort. But what we've got here, my review of it says that it gets the job done. And it gets the job done in a really organized fashion. And so, I, like you, want all the other board members to have time with this for their reading hour. So that they can read it and understand it and we all get accord with it. So I'm in total agreement with you. I would tell you that the only other thing I'd like to do, and will take it on myself to do, is to reach out to another community that I work with just to see what they use. But this was one of our huge goals for this year, as you know. And so I'm really happy that we've been able to get this to this point. So that would be my comments. So just as you said, next steps is that each board member be given this, ask them to review it, and be prepared to make recommendations, vote on it, approve it, put it into place. So with that being said, Virgie, can you see that all the board members get this with a note that we'd like for them to read it, be prepared to comment and have input on it for our December meeting.
Sure, yeah, thanks. The next item is, we have adopted the practice of looking at the financial statements in this meeting. So as the executive board often wants to review the financials in detail, have discussions, conversations, so that we're prepared when we get to the board meeting to make a recommendation to the rest of the board. So it should streamline those discussions at the board level. So beginning on page 2, these are the October financial statements. These are the balance sheets. So we have 4 balance sheets and then we have 4 P&L statements demonstrating the activity. So page 11 roughly indicates that the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority has $176,000 in investments. Sorry, I was missing something here. So yes, $176,000 in investments. That is at the Brownfield Authority. The next page is the Fund 244, the Economic Development Fund, and you can see that there is the better part of $600,000 in cash and investments, and we have some prepaid information, and then we have a security deposit on our site at 115 North Superior, and that deposit is split between 2 funds, this and the TIFA fund. We have deferred revenues of $5,000. That's a sale that's in process, has been for about 2 years now, trying to wrap that up. That would then become revenue in the year that we are able to close that sale.
Where are you at in the process of that? So it's a little off topic, but
It's okay. So this is the piece of property that we're selling out of the industrial park, and it's actually 3 parcels together. And this is the piece that had some challenges with its title. And we were trying to reconcile that, and I think Nelson and I are on the path of reconciling that challenge for title, which then would allow us to sign off and complete that sale. What the solution was that I be appointed a trustee for the defunct trust that had the title mishap. And so now it would be a matter of me signing on behalf of the trust to allow for the sale to occur, and then the sale to occur. That's a high level summary.
Sure, and we've done all of this with legal counsel guidance and
Yeah, way above my pay grade.
Mr. Nelson.
And this pushes us closer toward, our, industrial park. Having one or three more parcels sold, is that correct?
Something like that, yes.
Something
Yeah.
relative to
And I think Nelson had a question.
that. Okay.
Not a question, so, thank you, and it's not a question so much as I want to affirm that Virgie has done everything she was supposed to do, but your attorney has not done everything he was supposed to do yet, but he will. Thank you.
Thank you. The next balance sheet is the TIFA fund, Fund 247. This, you can see the TIFA fund is sitting on about 400,000 in cash and has some small receivables. I have a question on the interest receivable number that I would like to get some clarity on, because I don't know what that number stands for, and so I'd like to kind of poke around a little bit with the finance director and ask what that might be. So a very small number, but just kind of curious. And then we have the rest of the building deposit, so the rest of the deposit for the rent at 115 North Superior. We have deposit payable of 1384.11, which I also am not sure what that is, so I need to get some clarification from the finance director on what that number is. You can tell it's been there a bit because it's the same number in the prior column, so just probably still acclimating to what we inherited as a group when I came on last year. So those two numbers probably just need a little schedule done on them, so I know, to manage those liabilities. And then the last balance sheet is the revolving loan fund. This is the fund that is managed by the revolving loan fund committee, and which happens to be meeting next week. For some activity that I hope would then resolve in bringing some items to the December 7th meeting for a vote, but the committee is scheduled to meet next week. So that committee has about $320,000 in cash and has a receivable of 24.5 because we did loan out some money to various organizations to pay their attorney fees, and we're just waiting for the state to reimburse that. And then they have loans receivable, which are 2 active loans that we have out from this revolving loan fund. One is in default, and one is up to date.
Then the subcommittee is meeting next week.
Yes.
It's got a time.
I don't remember the time, I'm sorry, but
It's got kind of date though.
yeah, and we have, it's fully staffed again, or fully boarded again, because we had some people come off. So we've been, so I think this board actually approved the new setup of that committee previously. The board approved a slate, and on that slate was one opening for a representative from Huntington Bank. And we now have that representative from Huntington Bank has joined, so she'll be attending that meeting. So now we have a representative from Huntington Bank on the revolving loan fund.
Okay.
Excited about that.
Yeah, that's great news. That subcommittee can function fully, having a full slate of
Yes.
representatives for it. You mentioned that there is a loan that is in default. Are we addressing that? Have we got a plan? I recall a year ago, had some discussion around it.
Yeah, it's been in default for over a year now, and there was a plan developed in July, not yet executed, needs to be revisited. That plan would be brought to the revolving loan fund committee next week for consideration. So the goal on that is to collect what we can monthly, even though I'm not really sure that business ever really took off.
Mhm.
So I don't know that the cash flow is there from that business's perspective. So that'll be up to the revolving loan fund committee to recommend either continuing to collect on that or making some other arrangement. So, they have communicated to me the dollar amount that they can afford. And so I quite frankly will bring that to the committee because I asked, they answered, and I'll bring that recommendation.
Sure.
So it's not what we would hope it would be, but I think it's in good faith what they say they can do.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. We have, you mentioned 115 cash.
North Superior.
North Superior, excuse me. Now, tell us about 115. I'm not as oriented with it as I should.
Sure. So 115 North Superior is, downtown, 2 doors north, I believe, sorry, of Ludington. So it's close to Ludington Center. There's 2 retail shops in between us and Ludington. So if you're on the Ludington corner right up here,
Okay.
and then head toward Sterling Books and Brew, you'll pass us on the left. We rent from Jim and Stacy Stewart at Urban Blue Development and they also own significant number of parcels in that block. So they've been a great investor for Albion, purchased a number of
Okay,
areas in that block, and then we rent from them. We have a month-to-month lease. And that's the space that we're currently occupying.
so we're currently on a month, we don't have a long-term lease there.
We embarked on moving there knowing that we weren't 100% sure that would be our permanent location. As the economic development person, I would much rather see retail there than a business. I just would like to see traffic. It is, I will tell you, it's enjoyable to be downtown. It's great to be with everyone downtown. If the opportunity came for a revenue generator to come in to that space, that would be my preference. It's really designed more for retail than for an office, but, it's a very, it's a good place to be until, we make some other decisions.
I see, okay, all right, I understand. Doing the job for now, but realize that.
I mean, ideally, you would want more of an office setting with some offices and, private places where you could meet with individuals and have some confidentiality. But again, it's certainly working for now. As we grow staff next year, it may not be as ideal, so. The next page, page 6, is Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. This would be the activity statement. As you can see, we, if you're looking at a column that says 10/31/23, you might think, gee, she's not really doing her job because there's not much revenue there. The revenue, is driven by property taxes and the transfers in from the Downtown Development Authority, and those are usually recognized closer to the end of the year. So, the amended budget is what we are working on for the December 7th meeting, so I'll clarify what the budget should be for this year. But again, it's not that we're not doing the work, it's just that number doesn't hit the income statement until much later in the year. So those are the incomings, and then, the expenditures is one payment that we made interest out to the developer at, the Marriott, and so we paid off that developer, and now all the rest of those dollars are being accumulated into, the revolving loan fund for future use for developers. So, the deferred taxes are no longer being provided to the developer because they've been paid off for their reimbursable costs. Now they're being accumulated into the revolving loan fund. So you'll see all that activity, I believe, before the statements close out. The next page 7 is, the actual economic development fund. It appears to me this is not the detailed report, so I can't really speak to the details. I'll have to ask for a detailed version before we have our board meeting next Thursday. And so essentially, it does indicate that we're operating well within budget, if not woefully underspent, which is partly because we had a bit of a hiatus here without leadership, so a lot of things kind of came to a screeching halt, but we're trying to rev everything back up, get back to spending, as my background is in finance, as you know, but also heart for operations. I'm not one to think you can save yourself into growth. So the fact that we've not spent what we budgeted to spend isn't really a positive for me. It kind of means, yeah, we kind of didn't hit some of our goals. So, in a way, we're close to what we had budgeted to spend. But you'll see when you look at the details, it's in different categories. And there's some work being done to look at those categories and make sure that we understand what we spend. So, but we can't really look at this because we didn't get the detailed copy of this. So we'll have to get the detailed copy. And then we can report on that.
So if you don't have the detail, for our main meeting coming 1st of December, would you just come back to us and share with us in that meeting, some detail around them?
Yes, and one of the items that you'll see on the, as we get to the item where we review that agenda, I'll be presenting an amended budget. And so it'll be critical to have the detail to be able to produce the amended budget.
Okay, so just a little follow-up, we were working closely with, the city manager, Haley, and their finance director to achieve, critical timing for their general city budget. Were we able to meet the timing that they needed, and how has that effort gone?
I haven't received any feedback. We provided what we were to provide, and I did attend the city council meeting where the budget had its first reading.
Okay.
And they approved, they did, it was satisfactory apparently to the council, so I think it has a second reading coming up, but then I think it'll go into effect, so.
Okay.
I haven't heard any feedback that they are lacking any information from us, so I think we hit the timeline.
So I think, and know that you put a lot of time and effort into that along with some other folks. So I just thank you for that. And I know we were pushing hard to work cooperatively with the city. And so, thanks for that. I actually spent some evenings on the phone as well, trying to work through some of those things. And so, good job. Thank you. And, we partnered with the city and that they needed to get a budget done, and so, I think they're pleased with the effort we put in, right?
Thank you.
Additionally, I know there are some development fees or developer scenarios that dollars go back to a couple of our developers locally in town. Share with Vicki and myself just briefly how that effort has gone and where it's at.
So I think you're probably referring to the brownfield redevelopment, projects. So we have 2 in play, as it were, right now, and a new one coming. So the Marriott, the developer has been paid off of their reimbursable cost. It's a 12-year brownfield plan, but only the first 7 years of that, those deferred costs went back to the developer. In the original plan, then those remaining deferred, sorry, those remaining increment taxes that the city gets to accumulate will now be directed into the revolving loan fund. So the incremental tax over a 12-year period of time, from the base tax to what the current value is, which is like 2.5 million. So, and the value was substantially zero at the beginning. So most all of the tax is truly incremental, and all of that then is captured into the taxing authority, which is the Brownfield Taxing Authority, and then it's dispersed appropriately. So the Brownfield has the responsibility to manage the calculations and presentation of the remaining process. So for the Marriott, 7 years in, developers out, now we get the rest of this into the revolving loan fund. For Brick Street Lofts, they completed their construction a couple of years ago. We have done some rework to get that caught up. There's been a couple of years of incremented taxes that are not captured appropriately. We're back on track, took about a year to get this solved. At the December 7th meeting, I will bring to you the payment request, because the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, which is this board, because this board has 3 boards built into one bonus. So this board has to approve that payment, and then I will send that payment over to City Hall, and they will make that payment to the developer. So they're anticipating a payout of the incremented taxes that have been collected over the last couple of years, so we have to catch up to May. Then we'll be back on track. The flow of funds for all of this, because these 2 projects are sitting in downtown, the flow of funds is these property taxes flow through the DDA, and then the DDA submits them to the Brownfield, and that's all regulated by interlocal agreements. So, because it's in the Downtown Development Authority, they have agreed to relinquish those to the Brownfield to be able to make those payments. So the cash flow from the summer and the winter flow, from the county over to the DDA, from the DDA over to, the Brownfield, and then the Brownfield, we distribute that out accordingly. So, we did take some painstaking time, to validate the calculation that we had in the EDC office. And we had a third party that was able to validate that we're doing that correctly. So that is what we'll be bringing on Thursday to make sure that that gets paid out. We then used that same work product to build out the budget, which you approved at the last meeting.
Right.
And then I will use that same work product to build out the amended budget for 2023.
Okay.
So, as far as Brownfield goes, it doesn't look like there's a lot of activity there. There's not a lot of transactional work. Most of it is compliance in the back end, and most of that is and should be done at the EDC office. And then it should be presented, to the city finance area so they can cut the checks when it's appropriate.
Right. Very good. So there's 2 projects or 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's 2 projects that are active. There's another one that the state of Michigan is in the process of approving.
Okay.
And that is the Erie Street location. There's 4 units above the old food hub. And so that's in process. I don't believe construction will start on that until later in 2024, maybe summer. But until that construction starts and ends, we won't really have any responsibility to collect that increment and issue that. So we're in the very early stages of that project.
Okay. So there's the Marriott, that's one of the projects.
Mm-hmm.
There's a project above the market that's coming.
Mm-hmm.
What's the 3rd project?
Brick Street Lofts is in the 400 block of South Superior, above all the commercial spaces.
Commercial space, that's like in the apartments or.
Yeah.
And then there's one and a half that may be coming on.
So, sorry, there's Marriott, Brick Street, the one in the Hoppers, the Erie Street location. That's the one that's in the works right now at the state level.
Right.
This board, prior to 2021, approved probably 6 or 7 other brownfield arrangements. So those are all downtown also, and they're just waiting for the developer to move forward on those projects. So there's a substantial amount of work that is slated to be done downtown. And those various developers have access to the brownfield plan that was approved here at this board. And we're just waiting for them to kick those projects off.
Can you share with us any progress, where is that, the bulk of the downtown project, just for.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of questions around there's probably 3 main investors that are working downtown right now, maybe even 4. The land bank is one. The land bank has a number of properties that we would like to see them convert to usable space. I can think of 2 without looking at my notes, but I can think of 2 that are pretty blatant that need to be done. We have Albion Reinvestment Corporation, which has 3 phases of improvement downtown. They're in the midst of phase 1, which is the block between the Bohm and Cass Street. So if you're on that block, that's phase 1. That's the one that is that has been come through the MEDC. It's come through the Michigan Strategic Fund. We are just waiting for the developer to begin work on that, on the construction phase. I can tell you that what the EDC can do to support that is to engage and entertain and attract businesses who would like to be located in those commercial spaces. So that developer has asked that we take that on to help attract, which is what we do. So we would do that for anyone, but to the extent we can get people to commit to using that space, the faster that developer can get going to build the space out. So what they are looking for us to do is identify people who would want to be in those spaces, the commercial spaces downstairs. We won't have any problem filling the units upstairs, the apartments. The housing need is so great that that'll be an easy one. But we want to be strategic about who takes those commercial spaces. So the EDC, rightly so, is supporting how can we fill those spaces. Land bank, for example, we would do the same if they asked us to help find a commercial, person to come into those locations. So, I would say in June and July, we had a pretty robust entrepreneurship program that the EDC was supporting, and I had a big pipeline. I haven't been able to revisit that pipeline since I've been back yet. Other things have been a priority. But without revisiting that entrepreneurship pipeline that we had began, it's hard for us to support that developer and helping to find people to use that space. So this is a true private-public partnership where you have a private developer who says, I will develop the space, but I need some demonstrated use. So our goal would be then to follow the 5-year plan and some of the strategies involved to make sure that we're making those options available to anyone who has a solid business plan and the type of business that would be good downtown. So that is how we would support that phase, and the other 2 phases for ARC would be similar. The same developer who's doing Erie Street location has some opportunities as ACE properties. They would have opportunities downtown to develop. And I think the college still owns some downtown facilities. And so those are off the top of my head, those are the 4 players that I work most closely with downtown to try to move the ball forward and develop.
Good. All right, so, good, thanks for the update and just kind of familiarizing or re-familiarizing us with some of the opportunities. Let's keep going.
So I think page 8, we were at page 8, which is the TIFA fund. Again, this is the increments that we gathered from the industrial park. And we use some of these for our operations. Again, without the details, it's probably not worth trying to explain that, but this is where some of our budget comes from for ops. It doesn't, this is only salaries, a very, very small amount of expenses go here because we only use this really to support staff. And we're, I believe we're under budget there too. So the revolving loan fund is page 9. The revenues in the revolving loan fund are typically, interest and any other increases. So as those dollars come into this account at the end of the year that we just talked about with coming out of the Marriott, increments, that will show up here as revenue. So again, as I amend the budget, I need to go back to some of that work we did to finalize the 2024 budget and identify the cash flow that would hit this account. So that would be the purpose of that exercise, to make sure we understand where this is gonna end up. It's really critical to amend your budget prior to the end of the year, which is why we want the board to sign off on it next week. Because that's best practice and required by code. I think that is it for the financials.
That's one question. So it sounds like the only thing downtown is basically looking at as far as, redevelopment or increase in what commercial priority is private, small entrepreneurs. Are we reaching out to any business that is commercial, that's larger, that would fit in these?
Without divulging specific, I would say that if a space is big enough to support a larger, commercial entity, yes. Yes, I would say yes, there's space available.
Well, good to bring the budget. Vicky, any questions you have other than those we've already shared? Ms. Amber, let's keep going through our agenda.
So the next item is just a reminder that it's that time of year. Not only is it the holiday season almost, but it's also time to re-elect officers for the next calendar year. So this is generally done at this time of year. So we would normally refer to the nominating committee to have the nominating committee reach out and identify a slate. We would expect that to come to the December 7th meeting. In lieu of a nominating committee in place right now, I believe we would refer to this committee. So the executive committee could serve as the nominating committee, because we have such a limited number of board members. So the current status and slate is, Mr. Harvey, as you know, you're the chair, and Vicky has taken on the dual role, secretary treasurer, and then Ben Wallace is the vice chair. So our bylaws allow for multiple vice chairs, which we had attempted to incorporate earlier this year because we have so much happening. But with our limited number of board members right now, I don't think that action plan is really palatable. It's unfortunate because some of this work is time consuming and takes a little brain effort sometimes, and so to spread that around would be great if we had more board members. So it's, I feel sometimes hesitant to reach out to the same people who keep, diving in the same pool. I know it must get irritating to hear from me as often as you do. So So I think the nominating committee or the executive committee would want to bring a slate to the next meeting, and we would want to vote those officers in. If there's no change in the officers, maybe the slate is just the same. But I know that when Vicky took this role, she was, interested in understanding whether that would go much further, through this calendar year, knowing it's, two roles in one, so.
Okay,
So can we, have it on our agenda at the next meeting? Because we have not had any more additional, board members, a question, to the city of why that has not happened. And, because we can't move, we can't do what we need to do until we have people that's in bodies in that.
well, Vicky, in much to your point, and thank you, you mentioned that in our last board meeting. We are developing a letter currently to go to the city, to ask, the administration to move forward, recognizing we have some board seats and we have some, community folks who have made an application that ask them to move forward with reviewing those and really now moves forward. The business that we are in, we need to have, bigger numbers in our board in order to share the work, have inputs and the like. And so there's a letter that will be going to the city administrator, to Vicky Snyder, today with the.
I understand that there's a letter going back, as a executive committee, as we are the director. I would like the question to be asked in our meeting. Because, a letter can be sent, that's another process, and it'll take time. We have the mayor sitting on our board, so she should be able to answer that question.
We'd like to. Like
Put it
that.
on the agenda,
Yeah,
so it can be addressed.
very good. We'll make it so.
You need help, do you need any help coordinating a meeting of the nominating committee, or, do you all wanna just maybe reach out to each other?
No, that'd be great. I know that you're all running around to the cars right now, so we'll ask you to drive that.
Okay, thank you. The last item on the agenda is to review, the draft of next week's agenda. I will tell you it is packed full, so, I only want everything at one time, so, if something on here can wait and you feel comfortable postponing it, I won't be offended. There are a couple things that can't be postponed, but I'm just throwing out, this is what I know that we would be wanting to cover, so.
So let me ask you, Bertie, as we always do, is send our board members a little reminder about the meeting. You've got a long agenda. I know that as you and I have had discussion around building this agenda, that it's a long one, and there's a lot of things that need to be get done before the end of the year. I think it's probably appropriate for us to send a little extra reminder to our board members that their attendance is so very important to us for this coming board meeting, and that they should block their calendars off for the 2.5 to 3 hours, right, in order to get through this entire agenda. So if you'll ask them, note the importance of the meeting, ask for their attendance for the final meeting of the year, and note to them that it will be a full-time meeting of 2.5 to 3 hours. To prepare their calendars to spend that time with it. That will be helpful.
I will, thank you. So, we have 3 presentations, I'll have my report, I'll try to keep it brief, it'll be in writing, so that it'll be there to review also. We need to do our annual conflict of interest forms, so it would be helpful for me just to pass those out during the meeting and have those signed and returned, so we're not chasing them down. And then we have our task force meetings, our task forces that will give an update. I will tell you, since I've been back, not very many of these have met. And I've also spread out the, so you don't have to hear me talk all the time, I'm also spreading out who reports out on these. So I don't imagine that these will take very long, I put 5 minutes for all of them. We've kind of talked a little bit today, for example, about the revolving loan fund committee. So since that may have a little more of a longer report out, we could work through it, but I think we just need to be consistent and remind ourselves, these are task forces that we are engaging the community through, so I just like to have them there as a placeholder for reports out. Then on the action items, the consent agenda, sometime we would want to move the minutes and the treasurer's reports and anything else that we do on a regular basis back into a consent agenda. But I have not felt comfortable doing that because of the lack of consistency, since, the middle of summer. So I'm not really ready to put those back in until we have more of the ability to drive, consistency. I think it's important for board members to make sure they're looking at the treasurer's report, for example, because there's a certain amount of responsibility. So I like to keep it out of the consent agenda, but someday we might want to use that again. So it's there, we won't have anything in it this time. We'll want to approve the minutes from the November 2nd meeting. We will want to approve the treasurer's report, and I'll try to get it restated with the details. We'll want to do the election of officers. We'll want to approve the policy and procedure that we just went over for the CEO evaluation. We will want to approve the Brick Street Lost Brownfield redevelopment payment that we've talked about. We will want to approve the revolving loan fund committee recommendations. We will want to approve the amended budget. We will want to approve the meeting schedules, which I have already circulated, so people could be looking at those ahead of time. We would want to approve any resolutions. I think I know of at least one because we applied for a grant yesterday, so we'll be bringing that forward, and then there's a LOI we're doing today. So to the extent that requires a resolution, but I know we'll have at least one. We're adding to the agenda to, work with the mayor on new board members. So maybe that needs to be a standing item for a while until we're full. Then, the next item would be.
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah. So then the next item is a report out from our, ex officio members and the board at large. We are remiss that we have not approved a series of closed session minutes. And the only way to approve those is to distribute them during a closed session, have the board look at them, and then go back into open session and approve them. So, this can wait. I just really would like to get it done because it's all of 2023 and kind of like to put 2023 behind us. So it wouldn't take very long, I don't think, to step into a closed session to review those 4 sets of minutes, including the minutes of the meeting that you'd be in, because you want to get those resolved. And then, to the extent we are not in closed sessions for a while, we would put all that to bed. So this is an option to put that to bed.
Nelson, a learning tool for me is, would it be, out of the ordinary that we, move this item into the first of January? And it's just a question, I'm not making a suggestion, but formally, is it a requirement that we do it within the year that meeting was held?
No. It is not a requirement and you could move it if you wanted to.
Right, so certainly not expecting this Virgie or anticipating it at all, but we may need, if we start to lose members at our next meeting, then maybe we would have to move the approval of those prior minutes into the January meeting. I don't want to, but just kind of talking aloud. If we're at 2.5 hours, you know, how long will our group hang in there? But I like you, I want to get it done in this 7th of December meeting.
I think I've managed to identify everything that we typically do at this time of year and what needs to be done. So I think this is inclusive of what needs to be done. I believe it's as accurate as possible. So that's the agenda. So we'll keep it on for now, but we may have to table if we run out of people.
Yeah, that's right.
The only thing about going into closed session is you have to have your attorney here. So sometimes when he's here, I like to take advantage of him being here, so.
All right, well, then the next item I see on here is the motion to excuse the members after the,
Oh, right, yeah.
okay. So that's fundamental, then we can have, public comment and then an adjournment. As far as I can see, you've got a good agenda put together here.
Nelson has his hand.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Carter, go ahead.
Thank you. You have public comment on the agenda twice. You always have, as near as I can tell, once at close to the beginning and then again at the end. And that may be the tradition. It's not required to have two, and it's not required to have one early. I'm just pointing that out. I'm not recommending that you change it, but I want you to realize you don't have to do it the way you have been. And it may give you some more time, but you may also generate some controversy if you cut out the first one. Maybe.
Sure. Well, that's a discussion to be had. You know, Vicky, I would weigh in by saying, you know, given where we're at today, in the community and our effort to be transparent and have involvement, it's good to know that it's not an absolute requirement. I would think that we would probably be wise to leave it as is, particularly right now. But let's put it in the tickle file that as things go on or time goes on, we may be able to reduce our time by just having one public comment versus two. That would be my thoughts. Okay, thank you, Nelson.
So now we're down to public comment, which, unless my mom wants to say something, I'm assuming we don't have any, but thanks, Mom, for being here.
Okay, well, that being the case, unless Vicky, you have something else? No. Ms. Benton?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Carter?
Nothing from me.
We adjourn.
So moved and seconded.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.